You're surrounded by freaks. The fact, like, look, it's a pleasant evening in Richmond in the summer. This is a nice time. You should be with your families, or you should be out, enjoying the evening. The fact that you're here makes you kind of unique. And you know what? It was freaks and people who dared to imagine something different that did everything that was decent and good in this country. Number 3.
I'm Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy.
I do want to be part of the Richmond chapter here, and I'd like to know, first of all, before I ask my question, how many else of you want to be part of the Richmond chapter?
Oh, that's a great question. How many of you would like, look at that, lots of hands go up. Yay! Yay! How many would like to be part of the Richmond chapter of Movement? Yes, Jimmy. So you're...
I think the way to build more support is to have personal, individual, one-on-one conversations with many people as we know, and even people we meet in passing. And the internet or on the phone is not nearly as effective as face-to-face encounters with people. I like what I heard about, arguing with facts, but using stories really is persuasive. Sometimes I can't quite figure so many people out and how they don't always understand things that aren't really working in their own best interest. And how would you suggest stories that might persuade people on this?
So, Jimmy, that's a good question. And what I would say is this. Never start any story with the idea that somebody's too stupid to understand their own self-interest and that you need to educate them. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but I just want to peel that frame a little bit, because the thing is, I think that many working class people who end up, quote, voting against their self-interest are actually voting because they know, you know what, both of the parties are not actually for me economically, but at least the Republican Party stands for God and guns and other kind of things that I can get behind. I genuinely believe this. And I'm just ripping right off of What's the Matter with Kansas by Thomas Frank, thank you. Thomas Frank, who said, actually it's the Democratic Party leadership's fault, because if they had actually stayed with an economic populist message and actually were presenting proposals that working class white folks recognized as being in their interest, that they would actually all still be Democrats. I mean,
they would overlook the wedge issues if the Democrats were looking out for their economic interests.
So if that were true, but the problem is, like you say, they're voting against their interests, but honestly, and I say that, I try not to get too much into this, but we saw an upswelling of support for Barack Obama for hope, change we can believe in. Progressive rhetoric was used, right? It was a progressive messaging. I mean, so in one sense, I think, look how successful progressive messaging can be. It inspired an entire country. And what happened was they were bamboozled. We were bamboozled. The Wall Street and corporate America were brought right into that administration as well. So honestly, part of the you say they're voting against their own interest. I guess what I would say is I honestly think anybody who's voting for corporatist and militarist Democrats are voting against their own interests. So that kind of discussion gets very complicated very quickly. Having said all that, what I have found is in the kind of one-on-one conversation that you're talking about, notwithstanding what you saw from me today, which is really a story where I got in front of everybody and everybody just kind of listened to me, when I'm actually doing organizing on the one-on-one, I ask some key questions and then I shut up and listen. And I let them talk. And then I look for opportunities to find the common ground, and then I say, well, here's where I think we have some agreement. And then I let them talk. And in other words, we create real conversations, and I think that we try to find the common ground and not look for the ways to separate us, but actually look and do the work of actually finding that kind of common ground. And it's why, Jimmy, what I believe is that if we stay on the principles of the Democratic Republic, the principles that we the people are sovereign, the principles that corporations don't have constitutional rights, the principle that money is not speech but it's property, that's how we can build the movement. That's how I would quickly answer that. Did I address your comment or no?
Yeah.
Number 4. Yes.
I would like to add to what you were saying. What I find I do, because I have Republican and Democrat friends, atheist friends, Christian friends, all kinds. I stay away, when I'm talking with someone about an issue, I stay away from party. I stay independent. And when I'm speaking, I speak about the issue. And on this, I would also not just, point the finger at for-profit corporations, I'd also point the finger at unions. Because it's not all good either. I mean, these are very powerful two beasts in our country that we're sandwiched between and can't do shit. So, I say in talking with someone, to stay away from the Republican-Democrat thing. Stay away from just for-profit, it's also non-profit. So keep it on the issue. That's what I do. And that's how I talk to Republicans and Democrats alike.
So one thing I want to do, thank you for that, ma'am. One thing I want to do is just point out something, and I'm going to use a Venn diagram. Y'all know what a Venn diagram is? So if you don't know, there's circles. So I'm going to draw a circle to represent a really great movement that we've already talked about earlier that really was a populist movement, and that's the Tea Party movement. Can I say really quickly that the Tea Party came about because of outrage at the Wall Street bailout? It started as a populist. I'll let you respond. I'm going to lay out my view. It started off as a genuine populist movement. It got taken over by the Koch brothers after several months, but it started as a genuine populist movement. And I know because I went to some of those rallies at the courthouse in my own community, and they were just ordinary people who were pissed off about the bailout. And what were they angry about? The government. And that's how they actually talked about it. Government policies, the government bailout, this is wrong. The second movement I want to talk about is Occupy. And what is Occupy angry about? Why, it's in its name. Wall Street. Right? And like in any good Venn diagram, there is the magical sweet spot of intersection. And in this magical sweet spot of intersection, watch this. Wall Street America has basically hijacked our federal government so that the federal government, as this gentleman pointed out, the federal government are passing laws that only benefit Wall Street and corporate America. Holy smokes! The Tea Party and the Occupy movement had huge overlap. In fact, watch this. If you deduct the very small but very vocal minority of full-on racist xenophobes, who are a small minority of the Tea Party, by the way. Talk to Tea Party people. You will find, like, some liberals like to vilify the Tea Party as if they're all racists and xenophobes. It's not true. Yeah, that's what the TV tells them. Most of them actually are not.
Well, a lot of them in Virginia are.
Well, your experience is good. I will tell you this. In the Occupy movement, if you take out the small but very vocal minority that says, burn it down, burn it down. If you take those people out of the Occupy movement, you actually find that there is incredible overlap. And Jimmy, the only place we can find that overlap is if we engage in just conversation with other human beings, one-on-one, put our assumptions down, and look for the opportunities that you just talked about.
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
That wasn't my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got sidetracked from my question
Go ahead.
because of what he said. And I just wanted to add on to what you said about moving forward or doing something about this. Good news is, and we were, I'm with the Alliance for Progressive Values, and we were up at the Progressive Caucus in Washington. And for 3 days, most of it was about being against Citizens United, which included senators and legislators at federal and state levels. So we already have some people in government who also want to amend or appeal. So this is, this is the time. But my